Why I'm Not Scary. My Experience with Bipolar Schizoaffective Disorder by Silas Scott. Danger, danger, run away, that's what all the people say. Let me live, gods, let me live. I never like the things they say. Danger, danger, people say. They stare at us with big wide eyes, but little do they know the victims are the ones they villainize. From my poem, Dishes. This is why I'm scary. Mental illnesses, especially ones such as schizophrenia, are depicted as horror, gore, and associated with textbook murderers. Bipolar has become synonymous in daily conversation with wishy-washy, hot-tempered, and rapid cycling. So, it must stand to reason that schizoaffective disorder, a mix of mental illnesses, sometimes depressive type but other bipolar, would be the scariest of them all. Bipolar-type schizoaffective disorder must breed unpredictable murderers. But is that true? There's a lot to unpack when speaking about mental illness and how warped the views of society remain, but I will walk you through it step by step. According to the World Health Organization's website as of 2022, 1 in every 8 people in the world were living with some type of mental disorder. The site also states that in 2019, 40 million people experienced bipolar disorder and approximately 24 million experienced schizophrenia. For schizophrenia alone, that's 1 in every 300 people worldwide. If every person in these statistics was a murderer or horror flick villain, we would be living in a much scarier world than what some believe. In fact, according to the U.S. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, in an article on their website from 2023, only 3 to 5% of violent acts can be attributed to individuals living with a serious mental illness. In fact, people with severe mental illnesses are over 10 times more likely to be victims of violent crimes than the general population." End quote. According to the WHO website's article on schizophrenia, only 31.3% of people with psychosis receive specialist mental health care. The site goes on to state that mental hospitals regularly violate the human rights of the people with schizophrenia in their care. Of course, filmmakers have used artistic license as an excuse to portray these disorders in such a way, pointing to the fact that they are not psychologists and that art is meant to evoke feelings, not be medically accurate. Unfortunately, portraying mental illness in such sensationalized ways can be downright dangerous when many people's first or even only exposure to these illnesses come from viewing them in the media. Due to stigma and lack of proper knowledge around the subject, it was not until I was 26 years old that I was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. There are still many who do not believe they are biased due to viewing the right media who still wind up believing myths. See, there are directors, actors, writers, and other media artists who have truly meant well, but who do not have the disability themselves or haven't spoken with people who do, and thus they end up spreading myths which can confuse and may unintentionally frighten their viewers. One such myth is that schizophrenia, because it means split mind, means that a person experiences alters, colloquially known as alternative personalities. Though I sometimes speak about my brain friends, these are not alters, and let me explain why. As reported in Schizophrenia, a 2022 article in Neurolibrary, symptoms include delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech and behavior, and negative symptoms such as diminished emotional expression, poverty of speech, and lack of purposeful action. The split in split mind means a split from reality, not a split from self. See, the people I call my brain friends are hallucinations, not alters. A glaring difference is that they do not take over and are separate from myself. The disorder that includes alters is called dissociative identity disorder and is not a part of schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. Another myth is that schizophrenia is always caused by drugs or trauma when, according to the UK NHS website under Causes Schizophrenia, as of April 13, 2023, research suggests a combination of physical, genetic, psychological, and environmental factors can make a person more likely to develop the condition. I spent my middle school and early high school years thinking I had demigod superpowers and grew up in a government lab. Not too dissimilar to the labs from Maximum Ride. Fortunately, these labs were just hospital stays due to my failing kidneys, and I would like to add that I have never done drugs. Around 10th grade, I began to believe I was the second coming of Christ and that my nightmares were predictions of the soon-to-come signs of revelations. I remember I tried to run away from school, convinced I had to go off to gain disciples, and when I came back, I was so sure my strict drama teacher, Mr. Warren, would drop me from the class after being put on a temporary medical suspension for a couple weeks. But he called me into his office the day I returned and said, "Don't do that again. If you need to talk, come to me." I never did go to the scary tattooed booming voice drama teacher who I was convinced was Odin for a time about my feelings, but it was good to know he was there. Shortly after, my folks did try to get me to see a psychiatrist, but I stopped going after the first session, convinced he was hiding cameras in order to show proof to get me Baker acted. That's forcibly hospitalized in Florida. The last one I remember before I got proper help was coming to think I was an apple. It happened without warning or suspicion, just simply me looking down at my legs, seeing my leg hair as worms crawling out of my skin, thinking, that's weird. I wonder why there's worms in my legs. Where do worms go? Apples have worms. Am I an apple? And then coming out of it to my mom yelling that I had been in the bathroom for 3 hours, and what was I even doing in there? I still get warped reality and hallucinations on my meds and with diet, exercise, supplements, everything I do to take care of myself nowadays that properly mitigate my symptoms. Luckily, it's been nothing like before, and though I still get some strange and ungrounded thoughts, I have the ability to fact-check and no longer get delusions. This is why I'm not scary. I believed in Santa Claus until I was 23, and my scariest delusion was that I was an apple. I've never hurt anyone due to my delusions or hallucinations, and never tried to either. Maybe that sounds like something I should have used to preface this entire speech. But should I have had to?